Hello viewers! Modern cars are loaded with features and equipment whose primary job is to make our journeys nicer. This includes power windows, heated seats, infotainment, Bluetooth connectivity and so on. Still, when the hot summer days are here, one thing takes the top spot, and that's the aircon, which you'll surely want to work perfectly. Still, a number of issues can make it inoperable, and a bad AC compressor, which is this video is all about, is one of them. But before we see what's what, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button. Let's go! The aircon's role is to cool down the air coming into the car's interior through the vents. This is done by a refrigerant, which circulates between an evaporator, which sits behind the dashboard, and a condenser in front of the car. Or to put it simply, this is something like the engine's cooling system. Similarly, the refrigerant is moved around by a pump called the AC compressor. In addition, and as its name may suggest, this component also compresses the refrigerant, which, once it reaches the evaporator, expands and becomes very cold. Now, I won't go further into details here, as this would involve explaining the thermodynamics of gases, which quite frankly would be boring. Instead, let's get back to the compressor, as this is the only moving part here. And as such, it's also one of the most common failure points in the whole system. So let's see what could happen when it breaks down. Aircon not working at all would be the obvious first choice among all possible symptoms you might experience. If your vehicle indicates the AC should be on, this for instance might be a little light on the AC button, but the air coming through the vents isn't cold, the compressor might be bad. There are, however, many other issues that can cause this to happen, so don't jump to any conclusions just yet. Instead, try to see if any other symptoms might help you narrow down the problem. Another thing you could notice is a rattling or whining noise coming from the engine bay. This could be caused by the compressor's internal components being worn or fallen apart, among other things. A good way to determine if the AC compressor is the one making the noise is by switching off the aircon and listening if it stops. And if it does, you can be pretty sure the compressor's internals have worn and will require the unit to be replaced. Most AC compressors' pulleys consist of two parts. The inner pulley will spin all the time with the engine without turning the axle into the compressor. It also has an outer clutch on this pulley which engages when the compressor should start. You can find out more about the AC clutch and how it works in a separate video we have here on our channel. If you notice a burning rubber smell from the engine bay when you try to turn on the aircon, it can mean that the AC compressor has seized, causing the serpentine belt to slip over its pulley. This might also be accompanied by a high-pitched squealing noise coming from the engine bay. But if these symptoms are present even when the AC is off, the problem is more likely to be somewhere else. Before it seizes, the AC compressor will most likely become hard to spin or generate vibrations. The same might happen if the AC clutch is on its last legs. Either way, this increases the strain on the auxiliary belt that drives it, causing it to wear out more quickly than it should. To determine if this is the case, remove the auxiliary belt from the AC compressor and physically check the pulley for any excessive free play. Your car's AC system has sensors in place to determine how much refrigerant there is within the pipework. And if there is a leak, the AC low pressure switch will detect this and turn off the compressor to prevent it from running dry. A refrigerant leak on a vehicle can often be difficult to find due to the inaccessibility of the components you're trying to check. However, a good place to start is the compressor body itself, whose seals may burst due to pressure buildups that can happen when there is a blockage within the AC system. As you may imagine, several things can prevent the AC compressor from kicking in, with it being faulty being one of them. For a start, the compressor's seals, and there are several of them, can become brittle or burst because of high pressures that may occur inside the aircon pipes. This causes a refrigerant leak, consequently shutting down the whole AC system. Furthermore, when the compressor is on, its internals are moving and rotating at high speeds to keep the aircon working. Over time, bearings and other metallic components might start to wear, which at first generates weird noises such as rattling or harsh grinding. And consequently, these parts may fall apart completely, seizing the compressor and preventing it from moving at all. Then we have the wiring connecting the compressor to the car's harness. Now in most cases there are just two wires here, but even as such they may get physically damaged or the connector might be loose or corroded. A simple visual inspection should reveal if that's the case. Lastly, you should keep in mind that for the aircon to engage, all of its components should work perfectly and within given parameters. So any issues here, such as refrigerant leaks or faulty pressure switches, could stop the otherwise fully functional compressor from kicking in. And to figure out if that's the case, you could carry out some simple tests. But for this, you'll first have to find the compressor. The aircon compressor is driven by the auxiliary belt, which determines its position and makes finding it easier, regardless of what car you might have. Just pop the hood and locate the belt, which will be wrapped around several pulleys. Now look for the one looking like this. And there you have it, that's your AC compressor. Sometimes though, the access and view can be severely obstructed by other components inside the engine bay. But even if that's the case, you shouldn't have trouble finding it. Okay, with that sorted out, let's now get back to those tests we mentioned earlier. Start by turning on the car and leaving it at idle for a few minutes. While waiting, check that all fuses are in place and then measure the voltage on the battery with a multimeter, which should be more than 13 volts. Now connect one of the multimeter leads to the ground and attach the other one to the compressor relay located under the hood of your car. Then set the multimeter to ohms mode so that you can test the resistance on the wires leading to and from the compressor relay. The readings should be between 0.5 and 2 ohms for a normal working system. Next, check the voltage at the terminals of the compressor clutch. This can easily be done by setting the multimeter to AC mode and then attaching its leads to the two terminals of the compressor clutch. You should see between 10 and 16 volts depending on the car you are testing. Finally, check the grounding wire, which should be securely attached to its terminal under the hood. You can do this easily using a multimeter set to DC mode, which should read 0 volts if everything is connected properly. If all of this checks out fine and the compressor is still not working, it's probably broken. Assuming you've determined the AC compressor is shot, there is only one question left to be answered. How much will it cost to repair it? While the AC compressor sometimes can be overhauled, this is rarely feasible. The fact is, when you add up how much all new parts cost, it's usually not much cheaper than a whole new compressor, and in the end you still have a used part with various potential issues. Instead, buying a new one, which costs between $400 and $900 depending on the car, is the better option. And at this point, you might be considering to replace the compressor yourself, as this may seem like a simple task. But in reality there's much more to it, as some special tools and equipment as well as some knowledge of how the aircon works are needed for this job. Furthermore, once the compressor is replaced, the AC has to be refilled with refrigerant, which can only be done by an AC refrigerant recovery machine. Lastly, the compressor that falls apart may generate metal shavings, which must be flushed out before the system is refilled. With all that in mind, having this done by a professional might be the best option. So that would be all about the aircon compressor for now. I hope this video will help you figure out if that's what's stopping your car from being nicely cooled down, and more importantly, that you'll manage to fix the issue. If you found all this to be helpful, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up. But if not, a whole lot of other things could be causing the issue. So to continue troubleshooting, check out other videos here or visit our site mechanicbase.com for detailed automotive repair guides. Bye!